Hello website friends, Pauline here, and today I have some advice and encouragement for you if you're feeling stuck and frustrated with your WordPress website, or equally if you're thinking about a website project and all the advice that you come across seems to point only to WordPress. Today we will talk about why is it that WordPress appears to be so dominant, what are the drawbacks that you should be aware of, and how do you go about finding a decent alternative to WordPress? If you don't know me, hello, I'm Pauline Wiles. You can always find me here at my website, paulinewiles.com. So I want to point out that my website itself still uses WordPress for the moment. When we get to the end of this video, you might be surprised to know that I'm not here to bash WordPress. WordPress does still have some good uses and may be right for you, but I'm really keen that you understand it's not your only choice. I'm on WordPress for now, but I will be moving very shortly. So WordPress is undoubtedly a very dominant platform. It's used by 60 million websites, according to Wikipedia, and there's a good chance that you've come across it in your website explorations. Now, I got started with my site around about 2009, 2010. WordPress first came out in 2003. So around this time, 11, 12 years ago, WordPress was in fact a really good option. And there was a high chance that your friend or someone you knew or someone who was giving you advice was using it too. So WordPress kind of grew and established, if you like, a critical mass among users like you and me who wanted their own website, who wanted to do it reasonably inexpensively, and had perhaps a little bit of technical knowledge, but certainly not full coding ability. And WordPress really grew and grew and got more and more popular. And like many things, it began to crowd out, if you like, what some other options might be. And in recent years, those options have really grown. Now, one reason I'm concerned for you and that you might assume WordPress is your only choice is because there is so much advice online now about how to create and use a WordPress site. And you might not be aware that much of it is now simply outdated. Times have moved on. Now, here's what concerns me most about that WordPress advice. When you decide you want a reasonably professional looking WordPress site, you're probably going to use what's called the self-hosted approach. That means you pay for space on the internet for your website to live. Many of the people who are giving you advice on how to create your WordPress site will recommend to you a hosting service. And when you click on their link and buy that service, they are making a really good commission from your purchase. Upwards of $100 is not uncommon. And so this means that a lot of the advice you're seeing is not impartial. People are trying to sell you hosting. They're trying to convince you to do things their way. So WordPress is a great choice, I believe, if you are reasonably technical and you are willing to spend quite a bit of time configuring your website and maintaining it, or you're willing to pay for that. If not, pay attention to these drawbacks. WordPress is not so much a single product as more of an ecosystem and a community. The central piece of it is open source, that means it's free to use, but there are a multitude of add-on features that you will either need to pay for or at a very minimum you'll need to configure. So there's no central support for WordPress. When something breaks on your website or you run into difficulty, you're either going to have to pay somebody to help you, or you're going to have to get online and search the forums and hope that some kind soul there has just the advice that you need. There's nobody that you can actually reach out to for official WordPress support. And when you use WordPress, it's not just a case of a one-stop shop. You are going to need hosting to go with it, so that's space on the internet. A WordPress theme that determines the overall look and feel of your site and can actually be quite restrictive. You will probably want to add plugins and widgets to increase the functionality of what your website can do. And all these things are going to require that you make regular updates as new features and new fixes and security fixes are released. So there are a lot of moving pieces with a WordPress website. Now, I believe WordPress is a particular target for security concerns. It's a very attractive target because there are so many users, so many websites run WordPress, that it is usually well worth the time of a hacker to design something that exploits a WordPress vulnerability. Now, I mentioned on the previous slide that you'll probably be using plugins to add some extra functionality to your site. And a real problem can occur when a well-meaning developer creates a plugin, but then life moves on, they no longer have the time or the inclination to maintain it, and that plugin either becomes abandoned or, even worse, somebody with less positive intentions purchases it, and you don't know that, and you cheerfully install the new code that they've created. That's how I ran into trouble when my site was hacked. A plugin had changed hands, and the new plugin owner had ulterior motives for what code should be going on my website. So this kind of gives you a dilemma as to whether to keep your plugins and your site up to date. If you don't, you run the risk that you are vulnerable to newly discovered problems. If you do update things, then you definitely run the risk that things can break and you might introduce unwanted code through those plugin updates. So that definitely gives you a dilemma in keeping your site up to date and keeping it secure. I want to make the point here that free is rarely actually free. So when you first install WordPress, you're told it's free to use. But then before you know it, you're spending money on hosting, you're probably buying themes and plugins and other services. And certainly when things go wrong, you're going to have to pay for professional assistance. So even though it starts out looking like a bargain option, WordPress certainly can end up costing real money. And I would argue it will definitely cost you in terms of time and stress. So all that means that there are plenty of people out there, and they are good people and honest people, and they will charge you to look after your WordPress website, to keep everything up to date. If plugins break, they will figure out why, and they will try to fix things for you. But these services don't come cheap. So care plans are big business, and I feel I'm now talking to too many people who are spending hundreds of dollars a year, if not over $1,000 a year, simply having their WordPress site nurtured and cared for. And that's a really big expense that you may not realize you're getting into with WordPress. And I would argue if you're spending over $1,000 a year just having it maintained and looked after, then why not switch and go with something that does not require that level of care, just to keep it secure and to keep it working. Right, so if you want to look at some alternatives to WordPress, where do you search for these? There are lots of tools available now. It can be pretty confusing. But I do want you to know, if you're feeling overwhelmed and disappointed with WordPress, you are certainly not alone. This is the most common reason why people come to me and say they're frustrated with their current website and they're thinking about a change. I have a free resource for you. Head over to my website, download my free website starter kit. It gives you lots of advice about what you should consider in your website project and how you can start to narrow down some of the tools that are available. And then in terms of specifics, I have these two other videos you might enjoy. Firstly, how to choose a website builder, the criteria that you should look out for. And if you are wanting to build your website yourself and you need it to be affordable for a do-it-yourself project, I have a video where I suggest 3 for you there. Right now, if you don't want to watch those, I would suggest that well worth a look. On the budget end of the market, card.co is a really nice service and it's very hard to beat for value for money. A little more expensive, it's a while since I played with Strikingly, but I've seen some nice results there. That might be worth a look. And then probably moving up in terms of your investment, Squarespace, I would argue, is now a leader in terms of what you get and the professionalism of the product. Squarespace takes away all these headaches of the different moving pieces and actually having some support that you can reach out to if you should need it. When in doubt with your website project, whichever tool you use, you will create for yourself fewer headaches and you will create a better experience for your visitors if you follow the less is more approach. So do keep that in mind when you're thinking about your technology. Once again, I'd love for you to help yourself to my free website starter kit, bit.ly website-start. I offer a range of ways that you can work with me. These are all explained on my website, and I'm happy to talk further. Once again, WordPress could be a good choice for you if you love technology and you love to configure things. If not, please know it's not your only option. There are other great solutions out there, and I don't want you to feel stuck. Come and find me at paulingwiles.com. That's all, and I'll see you next time.